A report out by the Institute of Economic Affairs says the impact of High-Speed 1 has not been as beneficial to Kent as everybody predicted. The author is Dr. Richard Wellings, and he's in our Westminster studio now. Richard, good morning to you. What do you make of what you just heard there from Damien Collins, that you've taken selective figures and you haven't not really telling the full story?
Well, obviously, he was taking selective figures by cutting out one of the parliamentary constituencies that didn't fit his message, and also by using the unemployment rate, which is a very, very misleading statistic because, of course, a lot of people who are really unemployed are on sickness benefits and so on, and that's not actually measured by the official unemployment rate. So we use a much better figure, which is the overall employment rate, which looks at the percentage of working-age people that are actually in work, and it's much more useful figure than using the official unemployment rate, which is heavily manipulated.
He also makes the point that wages have risen faster in East Kent than they have in other parts of the country.
Yeah, we didn't find that. We found there's basically no difference, and overall wages are still very low compared with the rest of the South East. A particular problem in Thanet, where I think average full-time wages are around 20% lower than the national average, and much, much lower than for the rest of the South East. So, I mean, clearly the impact is patchy. We're not denying there have been benefits for certain localities and certain sectors, but there hasn't been this kind of major economic transformation that was, as if like what was promised in the 90s when the politicians were selling the scheme.
And you left Ashford out of your research, which he also says, Damien Collins also says, which is, unforgivable, really. It's one of the areas that have, benefited the most from the link.
Well, it's not actually true. We'd included Ashford. What we did was we focused on different sort of spatial scales, different geographical scales. We started off with the four boroughs furthest east. And the reason we did that is they, if you like, are fairly old industrial areas, a bit like the north of England. And we were, of course, looking at what the impact of High-Speed 2 was going to be. So that was quite appropriate. But then we also scaled it up to the two boroughs further west, Swale and Ashford, and then the whole of Kent. And even if you did that, it still didn't seem to have had a massive economic impact.
What do you make of his assertion that this is really a politically motivated report to scare off people who are in support of HS2?
We started the research with an open mind, and I was actually quite shocked by how badly the region performed. I thought it would have done pretty well, particularly because it's got a lot of advantages that the north of England doesn't have. So it's the closest part of the UK to the, if you like, the core of the European economy. It's only about an hour's drive from the M25. It's nearby to very prosperous areas in other parts of the South East. So huge advantages compared with the north of England, which is obviously a problem for HS2. But nonetheless, looking at these key economic indicators, at best, there didn't seem to be much difference compared with the rest of the country and the rest of the South East. On a lot of indicators, there's some big problems, particularly the borough of Thanet, where I think the employment rate's only 61%, which is roughly the same as Liverpool.